When you think of the perfect taco, if you don't think about birria, you haven't met perfection yet. The flavorful beefy spices and herbs that goes into this dish, alongside the cheesy goodness that oozes from the mozzarella, is one for the books. And I'm going to show you how to make it. Sit back, relax, and please don't salivate. To start off this recipe, I'm taking a pot of water and I'm going to fill that up. I'm usually just going to do about half of the pot size, and once that's done, I'm going to put that on the stove and allow that to boil while I'm getting all of my preparations done. Now I'm taking this beef broth by Swanson because birria is usually made with a beef. So using the beef broth and boiling that with the water is going to allow for the meat to really soak in a lot of flavor and give us a more flavorful taco. I'm going to put on my gloves just because I love to have on gloves when I'm touching on meat. And I'm using pork belly for my meat of choice in this recipe. However, I usually do a chuck roast, which is beef. So if you can get a chuck roast, I highly recommend doing so. Now I'm just kind of basically purging my meat, which is just letting it soak to get all of the grittiness and gook out of it. I'm going to chop up my meat into pieces. This is going to help me when it comes to putting it on the skillet and also boiling it. Searing your meat in a pan is going to allow for more of the flavor from the meat to really come out and be aromatic. This is going to help us maximize flavor as much as possible when we put our meat inside of the pot. Now you may also notice I am holding the meat with my spatula. I'm doing this to allow each side of the meat to get a nice sear on it. So if you want to go the extra mile to make sure each side is nice and seared so we can maximize the flavor, then I definitely recommend doing this step. Now after I'm done searing all of my meat, it all goes into a pot where I'm going to let it boil for a little over 3 hours. Now in my pot, I'm going to go in with half an onion and about 2 to 3 tablespoons of garlic. I'm also using some garlic powder as my choice of seasonings because garlic just tends to give your food an immense amount of flavor, whether it be an American cuisine, Mexican, Italian. So it's always my go-to whenever I'm looking for something to flavor up my dishes. I'm gonna also go in with some thyme leaves. This is going to really add a nice plant-based flavor to our food. Thyme carries a really nice flavor to it as well. So I highly recommend using the thyme for this recipe if you are also looking to further and deepen the flavor. And as you guys can see, the meat is just boiling and it's just going to be so nice and juicy. Now the water is going to boil down quite a bit, and because of that I'm going to add in some beef broth. But before I do that, I'm going in with some ground cumin. Again, just trying to intensify and maximize the flavor in this recipe. I also add in some onion powder. Onion powder is another one of my favorites that also carries a lot of good flavor. So I'm going to add in some powder as well as putting the onion inside of the pot. I'm also going to add this Saison seasoning that my uncle actually got me from the Dominican Republic. I'm just using this just because I felt like it was very fitting since this was from the DR and this is like a Spanish dish. I just wanted to add that in there. I'm also adding some cayenne pepper for a little bit of spice and some oregano. The cayenne pepper though is optional. I love me a nice spicy dish, but if you don't, then you can of course opt out of that. Now you're just going to make sure you stir everything up in your pot. You want to make sure that all of the seasonings is hitting all the pieces of meat. That way we can ensure that we are getting flavor throughout the entire pot. Now I'm going to also add in some more of the liquid beef broth, but if you don't have the liquid beef broth, you can use some beef bouillon or beef cubes, which both work as great substitutes for the broth. Now after I'm done messing up all my seasonings and broth, it's time to prepare our mixture that's going to take our birria up a notch. I'm going in with half an onion, a peppercorn medley, whole cloves, guajillo and arbo chiles, and 2 cups of water, although I used 3 because I was being a little bit heavy-handed. I used about 8 arbo chiles and only 4 guajillo chiles, although I would probably use about 6 guajillo chiles. If you are looking for a low spice to no spice birria, then I would definitely take out the seeds from the chiles because that is going to help to decrease the spice. I am going to add in a few more seasonings such as ground cumin and thyme and minced garlic. Now like I mentioned earlier, I did go in with 3 cups of water, which which was a little bit of a oops moment for me. Going in with so much more prohibited my mixture from being able to blend up very well, and so when I pour it into the pot, you guys will see that the seasonings and the seeds and everything was still pretty much whole. So I'm gonna put that back into the blender and then add a little bit of water, not too much though, because you want it to be more thick and orange, and I'll show you guys how that's supposed to look in a minute. Now, to get the mixture out into the pot, you are going to want to use a strainer for this step. This is going to help you get the right things into the pot, and so you don't have any gritty bits of the mixture in your food. Now, I'm using a spoon to help me push all of the seasonings and the flavors down into the pot, and then you will start to see that the color of the meat will change to like a little bit of a darker orange color. Now, this is what your mixture will look like when you do it correctly, the way that I stated it and not the way I did it in this video. And as you guys can see, everything is nice and blended up. It is mixed. It looks like a smoothie almost, just a really spicy one, so you don't want to drink this raw. Now, I'm adding in a little bit of the water as I am sifting it through my strainer, because that's going to help me to get everything as much as possible into the pot. And I like to use the spoon again to push down on the mixture, which is going to help further push it through the strainer, so we're getting all the liquidy aspects of it and not the gritty bits. Now the time has come for us to build up our taco. I shredded the meat off camera, so I'm sorry I can't show you guys that, but I'm basically taking a corn tortilla, and on that I'm adding some mozzarella cheese, which is my cheese of choice when it comes to a cheese pull because it has a really nice one. Going in with some onion, cilantro, and then of course my birria. And do y'all see the color? Like, do y'all see it? Just imagine what the flavor is like. I mean, come on. Now I'm going to add in some more cheese after I add in the birria on top of that. And you guys, I promise this is just delicious. If this has not made you want to make the birria, I hope at the end when you see me eating it, that will change your mind. But I'm going to go ahead and flip over my tortilla, and I'm holding it with my spatula to make sure everything stays in place, because it's a really small tortilla and so things are likely to slip out. I'm also putting on the edge of the pan, if you guys can see that. That's helping me as well to keep all of my ingredients inside of the taco. And when I flip my taco, you guys will see that the other side is very well cooked. You want to make sure that both sides get very crispy, because corn tortillas have a habit of ripping very, very easily. So I like to make sure each side is cooked very well. Once that's done, you guys will have your taco, and I put a little bit of the consomme inside of a ramekin. And do you guys see the cheese pull? Absolutely delicious, you guys. That's why I love mozzarella cheese. It is the best. And please do not make this taco without dipping it inside of the consomme. It is going to add an amazing depth of flavor to your taco, which is just going to be like chef's kiss, quite literally. I mean, do you guys see the cheese pull, the cilantro, the onion? Everything just comes together to add a nice depth of flavor. If you guys try out this birria recipe, I would love to know how you like it. And if you enjoyed this video, then don't forget to subscribe to me for more content.